Oh, hell yeah. I'm going to tweet this out real quick.
Okay. Yeah, let me,
How was that interview with Lou?
It was great. I mean, I was terrified.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but I think it went well, and made it through.
Is it going to
So,
be released?
Yeah, I should come up sometime. I think by tomorrow sometime.
Oh, badass. Okay. What'd y'all talk about?
I asked him just about kind of the origins of the institute. Asked him about what he thought about the current right wing intellectual sphere or whatever, and he kind of gave a more moderate answer on that one actually about how anyone that wants to work with us we should work with. But I thought it was good. And we also had a panel on decentralization as well. It was a great event, though. Beautiful facility, the Don Cesar.
Yeah, it looked really cool. Did you were there for Tom and Jeff's talk?
Yeah.
Did those people take their masks off when Tom made that?
There was a couple that at the very least you kind of put it underneath their nose, but it was not like a mask.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Cool. We will get going. You guys are tuning in. For those of you that are here, and for those of you that join later, welcome. This is Counterflow Live here on YouTube. I'm Buck Johnson, of course. This is my friend and guest for this hour, Bishop, the man from Florida. Welcome.
Always glad to join you, Buck.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about discussing with me some talk and some ideas that you have for the Mises Caucus. Mm-hmm. And if you were in one of their leadership meetings, some things that you would let them know. And this is for those watching, before we start this, despite what some people may assume from the name of this discussion or from my tweet earlier, this is not hostile. Tho nor myself have anything against the Mises Caucus. And so we'll start with that. This is not meant to take digs at anyone.
Right.
Both of us have friends in that group, and I think a lot of the ideas that the people have politically are probably fairly much they're in line probably with ideas that Tho and I have. So start with that, and but let's get into it, Tho.
Yeah, well, this has come up a lot because my October's been a little crazy. A couple of weeks ago, I was with you in beautiful Lockhart, Texas, and obviously a lot of people came up asking about the general topic of strategy. Tom Wood's event, it was crazy. I mean, 2,500 people there. On the first night, just kind of a spontaneous gathering at the poolside bar, which is pretty incredible when you consider. It was a nice place. It does. Place worthy of Tom Wood's 2000th, and it had a price tag that matched it. So you had a lot of people that spent a lot of money coming out there, and there was hundreds of people out there that first night. And then this topic came up a lot, and so I thought this can be opened up for a different sort of conversation, because within this I'm not trying to persuade anyone of my paleo strategy. Right, this is putting aside. Like the paleo strategy, this is presuming that you have, this assuming that you have no interest in kind of Republican Party politics or that sort of stuff, how could the Libertarian Party, or the Mises Caucus, more or less in its current format, in my opinion, have some slight tweaks to general strategy in a way that I think would lead to, that would avoid some of the issues that I have with the LP strategy generally, right? Now again, take my opinion for what it's worth, but this is kind of where I'm kind of about it. And one of the things is that, when you talk to because the way I say it is, and I, starting off from my perspective here, just so, if there's anybody who's with the Mises Caucus here that has some differences, then, perhaps we can address them at the core. But I kind of see that the people that attracted the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus are kind of done so for three reasons, right? Number one is they're Dave Smith fans, right? And so within that basket, you have Dave Smith 2024. And I think, there's a percentage of the people that if Dave Smith doesn't run in 2024, right, then their interest in this whole thing goes away, right? Like they may think of themselves as LP, but like they're not engaged. They don't really care about the actual takeover stuff, right? So you get that one camp, which is a great camp. There's nothing wrong with that. Then you have the second camp that the Mises Caucus had, it is kind of their own way of redefining, taking back that word libertarian. And for these people, the LP Mises Caucus strategy really is kind of placing a mirror to the LP and showing that the people in positions of power are not good representatives of the libertarian brand that they care about. And therefore, the entire purpose of this was kind of trying to remove that stigma to the label as much as everything else. And this is why people get so defensive of that label, right? Okay, fine, nothing wrong with that. And then on the third side, you have the people, I think, motivated mainly by the idea of local politics, right? They see the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus as a means of getting libertarians to adjust their expectations away from presidential campaigns to local city, city campaigns and things like that. And therefore they see this, again, they don't really care about the party brand per se, because these are nonpartisan races generally. It's just a way of creating kind of a PAC dedicated to the purpose of fighting for decriminalizing psychedelics in certain communities, right? Of winning that city council seat that may help, lower taxes, right? It's a low. And I think all these things are very admirable. What I think none of them are, with one exception, actually, to a certain extent. Basically, what I'm going to hope to try to do is to highlight how these same things can be accomplished without the LP in particular, and how at times the LP, often in the case, the LP in particular, undermines these three strategies. First and foremost, do you agree? Do you think I'm missing any group within that? Like, I think there is perhaps maybe a fourth group of people that's genuinely like diehard LP caucus warrior that lives for those sort of meetings, but I'm putting them kind of in a separate thing. Yes. But do you have anything that any comments on those three?
No, I with your addition of that last group, that sounds basically as the people I know from it and have met in person. I would say that kind of covers the spectrum. I within any party grouping, political party, there's always going to be the kind of people that love the bureaucracy of it.
Right.
And I don't mean that as a jab.
Right.
We're libertarians. We don't like bureaucracy. With any organization like that, there is a bureaucracy, and there's people that live for that and want to get elected into this position or that. Not my thing. I went through that years ago in the LP. It's horrible, but some people like it, so more power to them. But there's definitely that group.
And you also have, for example, like let's call it like the 2021 wave of the people that were upset by the handling of New Hampshire's LP stuff, right? You kind of had like the anti-LP corruption sort of wave of LP Mises Caucus type. That's when Carrie Ann Harlow's joined, right? All these other people that were still not Mises Caucus folks that joined it because it was a sign of rebellion against leadership. So again, that's the people like genuinely just caught up for the LP, in the truest sense sort of stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I think then now hitting these things, I think we might do it in reverse order, because I think the Dave conversation could, I mean, it's going to be more speculative and just having fun than anything else. But the first one is the local politics one. And this is something that it's honestly, it's one of those topics that gets me really frustrated, because I know it's such a language barrier, and that like so it very rarely becomes a useful thing. But it's like the degree to which the best part about the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus is the actual work that the caucus has done. So it's what Michael Heiss has done, and that's the PAC, right? The biggest asset the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus has is the PAC that Michael Heiss has been able to do, based off of the earnestness of his message, of his work in hustling and getting people to attend, for one, put on great events, have people believe in the figures that he has surrounded himself with, all that sort of stuff. He has built a PAC that has a very substantial fundraising stake in it, and has a clear plan on what it's trying to execute. I would argue that same exact PAC, without one change in strategy, becomes instantly more valuable if the PAC itself is not explicitly tied to the LP.
Yes.
And so again, every single donor doesn't change. I'm not even saying that you change the purpose. If you want to finance Libertarian Party events for the sole purpose of taking over LP National Convention and making Angel McCardell chairman and all that, you can still do all of that with the PAC that doesn't have the LP attached. What it does, though, is that on those local races, it gives you a little bit of that cover, right? You're not getting money from a PAC by a completely directly affiliated, explicitly partisan PAC, which then kind of expels the secret that you're trying to keep under wraps, right? Which is one of those libertarians. In fact, what you would want is to encourage as many people as possible to take this most strategic route possible in terms of winning these sort of things. Again, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. I'm not trying to push a red strategy here. It's just in general, what this would instantly do is allow for those local candidates that, again, is what we're told is kind of the main pushing point of the political approach here. They could then be free to operate as ever they want, because again, they're still the same team, they're still the same circles, they're still the same Facebook groups, whatever. The organization hasn't changed. It is purely the labeling of it. And so that's one thing. And at one point, I was going to have a conversation with Michael about this on Pete's show. I hope it happens at one point, because again, it's a point where I'm not trying to diminish when I make my critiques of them. Generally, I'm not trying to ignore what they see as the obvious point of agreement here. I'm just saying that that aspect of the PAC undermines things. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, let me just for the people listening that aren't totally clear on PACs, political action committees, yes, and what that entails. You can be a PAC, a PAC fund, just like they are right now, the Mises Caucus political PAC, and then basically do anything they want. So you're saying the LP title being attached to the Libertarian Party is putting some constraints on them that they otherwise might not have if they were just strictly the Mises Caucus PAC.
Right.
Okay.
Right, because again, it takes a direct connection there. So you have a little more flexibility in how individual pieces of that strategy can play out.
And they can still do as much Libertarian Party stuff as they want. They're Correct. Just not tied specifically to that party. If they have a local candidate that has to run as, let's say, a Democrat in Orange County or Southern California somewhere, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, it's theoretically they could do it now, even it's just that you still have the name attached to it, which is just it creates when candidates are desperate to try to find whatever the cheapest way of showing that the guy they're running against is less like them than they are. It's just always going to be a boogeyman for some of these candidates.
Yes. Yes.
The second thing, the means of kind of recreating libertarianism or rebranding libertarianism away from the la libertarians and others. again, I think obviously, I get why there is some desire there to defend the LP label, and honestly, this is the pitch I'm going to make here has nothing to do with his underlying thing, but it kind of just worked symmetrically. I think that there is another organization. For example, if you were a libertarian, and what you're trying to do is to push a degree of ideological rigor, right? You want to try to create a vetting process to identify the true diehard enemies of the regime and the weaklings. There are other organizations besides a third party that can be used for this. We saw this with the rise of various Tea Party organizations, where you have, I think, I know one of the Texas organizations, I think you've promoted them some. They do like scorecards and stuff in the Texas legislative session, right? You have this in a variety of different things. And what if I can tell you that there exists in this country an organization that Ludwig von Mises himself was affiliated with, that Hans Senholz of Grove City College, was a part of, has a long history of promoting Austro-libertarian thought, was once led by a who was one of Ron Paul's mentors, and an organization that happens to have a nationwide infrastructure of mailing lists, of a well-published magazine, of millions of dollars in the bank. The answer is the John Birch Society is, I think, an organization that if one is looking for one, like, if you're willing to take the LP stuff, like, you're already kind of banking on we're going to burn this sucker to the ground sort of aspect, right? So what you are already rejecting politics as usual. So in walks in, you have the chance of resurrecting a once powerful machine, the John Birch Society. Now, the John Birch Society, for those that don't know, was founded by a Candyman, Robert Welch, who it was an organization dedicated to fighting back against what they saw as a rising tide of communism in the United States. They had field offices, I think, in more counties than any other conservative group, and there was great concern amongst the establishment right that the John Birch Society was more powerful than they were. So when Bill Buckley purged the right of Pat Buchanan and of Murray Rothbard, part of the people that he was purging was the John Birch Society. Now, the reason why is that they were basically the Alex Jones of their day.
Yes,
they were right about too many things, and often in ways that, tone-wise was not respectable. And when ultimately the biggest issue the John Birch Society always had was Robert Welch accused Dwight Eisenhower of being a commie. Yeah. And so that was, so that used to be the go-to attack from like mainstream conservatives, like, oh, well, that's just, they thought that was beyond the pale, right? They'll believe Joe McCarthy is, they'll believe McCarthy is, but they won't believe Mike. Okay, fine. That does, though. Buck, are you familiar with Congressman Larry McDonald?
I don't believe so.
Oh, Buck, we got it. So, Congressman Larry McDonald has been one of my favorite rabbit holes of late.
Yeah. Okay. We've talked about this for some drinks. Yeah.
I can't remember if I brought it up again or not. So, So to our audience out there listening, did you guys know that in 1983, the peak of the Reagan years, the peak of the Cold War, the Soviet Union literally shot down a living American congressman in a civilian jet? No one talks about this, right? For all their Russia phobia, no one brings up the fact that, those Russians literally killed a sitting congressman and shot down a civilian jet to get him. Why is that? Well, the answer is their politics are too based. Larry McDonald was a Democrat from Georgia. But he was a good Democrat, right? It's kind of old Southern tradition. When Ron Paul ran for president, or ran for Congress in the 70s, the first person in DC called was Larry McDonald. when he used to protest the Fed in the 70s, it was Larry McDonald that was the leader of the protest because he was the senior member of Congress. Well, in the 80s, he took over the John Birch Society as the chairman. And there's a great YouTube clip. I'll tweet it after this, where Larry McDonald is on a crosstalk with Pat Buchanan and some liberal, and it's like watching Ron Paul in his prime. Like he hammered, like so it starts off with like just them grilling about the John Birch Society and these crazy conspiracy theories and all that sort of stuff, like the liberals. But like the guy just goes after him, and he has citations. It is just one body shot after another. And basically the warning of the John Birch Society was that while one of the issues is that they're always more kind of hawkish, on the Soviets generally, though like they were very like Vietnam War was a scam sort of thing too. So like but so they were big Cold War hawks, but they recognized that communism was one of various shades of socialism, and that the greatest threat in the West was the general erosion of national sovereignty, with the aims of being a international one world order, right? And he talks about how it's all being the role of central banks and the IMF on the financial side of things. Like everything he talks about is eerily has aged eerily well. In fact, in the 1976, we had a big swine flu epidemic here. There's 2 congressmen that voted against like swine flu emergency powers. And of course, Ron Paul and Congressman Larry McDonald. And so this guy was shot down in a plane over Alaska, shot down by Russians. No one talks about it. And so he was the head of the John Birch Society, right? So you have this fascinating this rabbit hole of just interesting stuff captured within the history of this institution. Again, the after that, the John Birch Society kind of it's not in its glory days, right? I'm not going. The New Statesman, their magazine, publishes a lot of Mises Institute sort of article stuff, but I'm not going to say it is an organization that's not been at its peak, but where a coordinated effort of ideologues could serve in like fieldman style positions, because they still field offices, things like that. One of the things the John Birch Society does is that they grade. They have a vetting system for congressmen based on a very strong, anti-commie, anti-one world government sort of report card. And so again, if you're identifying what are the sort of institutions that a ideologically driven could actually gain value with, I think the John Birch Society offers a lot more than the LP. Again, it's got a nest egg of funding. It's got all these resources out there. Are you familiar much with the John Birch Society?
A little bit. It's something that I looked into, to be quite honest, when I was younger. I became a member of what was then called the Southern League, when the League of the South, before they went crazy. And I was part of that. And then that kind of naturally, this is at the early beginnings of popular internet, 97, 98. And that led me to discover the John Birch Society. I believe, I can't remember if there wasn't anything near me, or I just kind of at some point drifted away from them. And then a mutual friend of ours, someone we both know from Twitter and real life, I know him, Young Stratty, went to JBS gathering. It's not even a meeting. It's like one of their events that they had last 2 weekends ago, I believe. And he was texting me saying it was amazing. He said it was about as many people. Remember the last year's Lake Jackson thing with Ron Paul? He said it was about around that many people, which was pretty damn good. And a lot of young people. He said he thought he and Anna were going to be the youngest people there, and he was very much delightfully surprised, a lot of young people. And he's like texting me, "You got to get this guy on your show," and giving me the names of the people that spoke there. And he said it was a fabulous time. He loved it.
Oh, one of the interesting things is the history of John Birch Society. The degree to which culture was weaponized against the organization, I think, is fascinating. Like you literally had Bob Dylan do a hit song against the John Birch Society. There's another song by a trio that was they're kind of like political satirists of their day, but they had a John Birch Society. So I think the degree to which the John Birch Society was identified as a threat by all sides, I think it's just really interesting historically. It was as much the Buckleyites as Bob Dylan, and they're all unified on that issue.
Marshall's asking in the comments, the Birchers were ostracized by the National Review crowd just as they did with the Paleo-Libertarians.
Yes, absolutely. And there always has been a little bit of I think an affinity on both sides. Again, Mises was a Bircher. Because ultimately the John Birch Society is a product of the old right. Mm-hmm. Right, it was an organization formed specifically as a reaction to progressivism of the 20th century, and yes, unfortunately, yes, Bob Dylan. But so and again, the how much passion, how many people were in the John Birch Society, that was the thing, is that it was a threat to, if you want to talk about something that was actually a threat to the Republican Party, it was the John Birch Society. Right, and so if your view is that the traditional two-party system, the duopoly, is inherently corrupt, and therefore we cannot work within the system to change the system, okay. The question I would have then is a third-party apparatus the best way of applying pressure within that system, or is a well-organized grassroots group that works outside of politics entirely, but captures a lot of that same sort of, it's not just funding different races, but actual the education side of parties, right? The grading scale. I think that there's aspects of organization that have a lot of the same benefits of a third party, but have the benefit of interacting with, ultimately within party structure, within primary structures, and applying pressure from that side, rather than trying to, make some sort of statement campaign with a third party general election race. But so that's definitely something that, it's something I'm toying around with more on, how much I want my affinity for Larry McDonald lead me down a full John Bircher card, but it's something I do think I wanted to throw out there as a possibility.
Has there been other groups similar to the Mises Caucus that kind of tie in with the John Birch Society over the years, like smaller kind of political committees, funds, groups, any of that, even small parties, the Conservative Party, any of these guys tie in with JBS over the years?
Perhaps. I don't know. I mean, there's definitely probably some overlap, just the way some figures kind of move in and out of movements at times. But I definitely think that some of where some of those lines line, particularly at the Tea Party days,
yes,
where you had so much just interesting overlap,
yes.
Which again, I think that was a very sort of right-wing populist period.
Right. Yeah.
And so the degree of which that might have led to some crossover. For example, I know that there's a great attorney in Florida, Christiane Hall, who does great constitutional law sort of trainings, and she's very very friendly with the Mises crowd, very libertarian. Her whole thing is the Constitution, so obviously there's some that leads to some friction here and there with certain people. But I know she's done events that the John Birch Society was also a part of. I know that they were part of an anti-vaccine mandate rally in Tallahassee recently. So you sometimes just get some of that sort of overlap just in terms of kind of issue advocacy. And again, it is interesting that often the most hardcore issue advocacy groups are typically like the really diehard, like Tea Party type crowd rather than some other areas.
Yes. Groups like the JBS bring back this kind of, I don't know, it's almost this sentimentality for me when I first discovered politics, and this like kind of hardcore rebellious right wing nature about myself that and again, this was early internet, so things were looked a lot different online. And then organizations to me like the LP kind of water a lot of that down, and it did in my own life over the years. I started as I was just became in my 20s and started drinking and partying all the time. I'd read Reason magazine and would kind of push some of the far right stuff to the fringes of my life, the dark corners, and you get this kind of blue pill sensation that just, looking back now, the LP waters things down, and organizations like JBS and at the time what was the Southern League, although they've kind of gone a wilder direction that I don't like as much, but groups like that, and reading Pat Buchanan and the Rothbard Rockwell report, that brings back a more like natural feeling that I'm a lot more comfortable with than LP.
And I think if you think about it, like if you think of the people that were the big Ron Paul people, I guarantee that the percentage of John Birch Society folks were far stronger behind Ron Paul than like your Reason folks, right?
Oh, yes.
And so again, and that's the whole thing. I think that the Ron Paul movement, is properly seen as a continuation of that paleo.
Yes.
Old right tradition more than the libertarian movement tradition. I think that after Ron Paul's 2012 campaign, you had a libertarian movement that was trying to take advantage, that kind of came in. You had a lot of Koch funding to all these libertarian organizations trying to take advantage. And I'm not trying to mean that in an exploitative sort of way, just understandably so. I'm trying to capitalize on the Ron Paul, and that's what led to a lot of these organizations that have aged about as well as you'd expect a libertarian movement to age based off of history.
Yes. Yeah. Well, good point. Yeah. Paul Gottfried, Chronicles Magazine, another outlet, the same kind of thing that I'm much more at home with. Do you think if a Mises Caucus, as it is now, if they did align themselves somewhat with John Birch Society, it would filter out people that, not you personally, but maybe strategically you would not want in the group anyway?
Yeah, I think it would capture what I think was some of the early appeal. And again, that might seem too like dismissive. It's like, oh, there's no appeal. I don't mean anything negative by it, but what kind of made, I think, Dave really start standing out early on was the fact that he was willing to engage with precisely the sort of right-wing online guys that we were told shouldn't be given platforms in a libertarian sphere. And it's precisely the fact that he was willing to treat those concerns sincerely and identify ways to which libertarian solutions were better we're better at achieving some of the sincere concerns that were there. I think that is the nationalistic sort of aspects of current political concerns are a lot better than the ones that have hostility to nationalism and outright. And I think that yes, like this would be kind of a great filter to getting back to some of the early good stuff, and I think genuinely could provide a platform where that energy can be properly used. Because one of the issues that you have is that if the goal is to take over a third party like the LP, it's very difficult to do that while maintaining a strong cultural identity, right? Like necessarily you're going to have to broaden your camp. That just ends up undermining the critique aspect that made the LP Mises Caucus, something so many people wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah. So what other groups would be out there that are similar to JBS? I mean, there's not many, I suppose, that are similar. But so say the Mises Caucus was just a PAC fund. For the audience listening that are thinking, well, what's the difference between just being a PAC fund and giving this group money or aligning yourself with this group and just being part of the LP? Kind of break that down too.
Well, for one, it's just obviously the amount of work that goes into actually capturing, state positions that then lead up to the the national elections, and end up getting all the inside parliamentary game, right? That takes effort and time and resources and organization to do. A lot of that same sort of effort, though, you have various ideologically driven groups that are looking for fieldman positions that end up kind of being the person that plays liaison to various Republican groups or political groups, helps organize things. There's a lot of there's a variety of kind of right of center, constitutional, issue driven, the Second Amendment stuff, whatever. A lot of that work is very similar, just in having a physical presence and someone to kind of be the representative. If you go to John Birch Society, for example, you sign up, put in your address, and they'll connect you to someone in that general area that they can introduce you to. The same sort of stuff. Again, the difference is simply, though, that you're not simply working within the confines of a specific third party. You can do it with independents. You can do it with Constitution guys. You can do it with Libertarians. You can do it with Republicans. It allows you to transcend the unfortunate realities of a two-party system.
Yes, yeah, and one of the things that interests me is the part of the platform, I believe, for the MC is they focus locally. Where I'm at locally, the LP part of that would hurt. However, if they were just a PAC fund, supporting local people here in my small town is something I would see that's very doable. In fact, I believe that's what Mises GOP plans to do at some point. But how does that, in your local area, would the LP being tied to your name, Tho Bishop, if you want to run for a local office, would it hurt, help, or be indifferent?
Yeah, no, it hurt. In fact, I had a friend. So I worked on his campaign. He ran for county commissioner. Very well respected guy. He had an auto shop. He had a long running radio show. So he had very high name recognition. A lot higher name recognition than a Republican running. But he got black. It ended up being like a 70-30 style run when he ran for county commission with no Democrat in the race. In a year where there was a tax increase in the ballot, supported by the Republicans, just that people don't, most people don't investigate their city council race. They don't investigate their county commission's race. And so they just go based off of, the letter next to the name. And, rest is history. Yeah.
Did the Shane Hazel thing hurt Libertarians' kind of future in politics in your general area?
Yeah, I think even if they don't recognize the name, like you hear the LP cost us the Senate.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not even someone that personally, I subscribes to that. I think that typically people overstate the direct influence there, but it doesn't matter, right? Truth is, if it makes it easier to scapegoat Shane Hazel than it does Donald Trump, then the majority of Republicans are always going to scapegoat Shane Hazel rather than Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And so that's the burden you're dealing with. They complain about it, but it's no less real. And that's the unfortunate way that it goes.
Right. So you're in this leadership meeting, theoretically, yes, with guys. You pitch them that one. What else you have?
Well, so I was listening to the great conversation with Mark Claire and Dave Smith recently. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I popped up from that, and I think there's a lot of validity to it, is Dave mentioned that, because he was answering one of the points that has been made about, well, does Dave Smith comedian brand, his name benefit from an LP run? Because after all, he's already making on Joe Rogan's show. He's already making it on, Tim Pool and that sort of stuff. And he said, well, sure, I can get on without it. But when he goes to do Tim Pool's show, they're even more, they're so excited because you have a campaign, right? And there's something to be said about that. I mean, Ron Paul has said it, right? He said that it is easier to raise money for a campaign to promote the ideas of liberty than it is any other venture. There's something tangible there that people can make it easy to rally behind. So I get all that. And so again, that goes into the third point about people that are in it just because they want to support Dave Smith in politics. They like an idea of a Dave Smith candidacy. And of course, you look at politics today, and this is very interesting trend internationally of comedians running and winning political office. And like I think that Dave is absolutely a viable political candidate. If he wanted to be a viable political candidate, right? And I just imagine again, what is Dave the best at? For one, he is a great communicator of these ideas, and is quick on his feet, and there's still an element. And think about this: what is Rand Paul's greatest accomplishment? Rand Paul is not particularly good at Washington.
Right.
He has no tremendous. I think he has he's got a few. Donald Trump did an executive order that he asked for medical related stuff, and he doesn't have great any great like libertarian victory policy wise that you point to saying, oh, I got this. This is Rand Paul right here. He didn't sneak in, and so he's not great at playing that side of things. He's obviously he was not a particularly successful presidential candidate. But what he's been great at, what he's best at, is when it's him, having the theater of a hearing going up against a witness, right? You think about what he's doing on the Fauci front. I mean, he is slight. No, there is no one in America that has done no more damage to Anthony Fauci than Dr. Randall Paul. And this is the element of politics I think is a lot of fun when you have and historically, it is the legislature where great oratory power actually has made a difference. And so you just think about it, and why couldn't Dave Smith be a congressman or senator, right? And so if you think about it, like even in New York, right? Within New York, I know he's not living in the city right now. I'm not going to speculate to where his abode is for a variety of different reasons. But even in the state of New York, you have multiple red districts. And a lot of these Republicans are very squishy. There's nothing exciting about them, with the one exception being I think not Claudia Tenney. Who's the one new member of leadership? What's her name? Elise Stefanik, whatever her name is. She's a moderate. I'm not trying to promote her bona fides there, but she's played her game pretty well, and she took over for Liz Cheney. The rest of them, all forgettable. Oh, absolutely forgettable. And so you've got a variety of different seats. Even better, you don't have to live in the district. What you have to do, though, is you have to campaign. And there's a variety of different parts of New York. You have Republican first district is red. So that just came into the Republican second district. Even better, there is there's a +3 Democratic district, which means it's going to be an open Republican primary, and a plus red district. So both 3 and 4 are +3 when you're considering you're dealing with a red wave sort of environment. It's very interesting. You also have the 24th seat, John Katko. It's a +D2 district. That's one where there's some interest. Oh no, never mind. He's a Republican. Doesn't quite work there. So you have to go through the primary there. But so there's even some primaries there where you can literally just a GOP run, punching on the right on COVID and everything else, and you could have Dave Smith in Congress, and then just constantly churning out, doing part of the problem from the House floor, right? Yeah. Now, even more interesting, there is one other seat that I thought of. You could have why not have Senator Smith from the free state of New Hampshire? You figure you have the organization of the Free State Project and the whole live free and die mentality. Currently, there is not a strong candidate from the Republican side. The expectation is that Chris Sununu, who is the governor of New Hampshire, will jump in, who would be very formidable. Not gonna lie there. But if you want a strategy that combines the Free State Project, New Hampshire Libertarians, and a winnable political seat, well, then Dave Smith for Senate of New Hampshire, 2024, is just a possibility to throw out there. Is it a little carpetbaggery? Sure, but Dave Smith is more a spiritual New Hampshireite than Hillary Clinton was a New Yorker.
Yes.
Before she became senator of New York. So hey, if that is okay, I don't see why Senator Smith from New Hampshire can't be a possibility on the table either.
Wow. Yeah, that's this is interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's it seems to be, this is putting, as we call it in our little group, this is putting theory to praxis, basically, because these seem doable rather than just, we all, even if there's a presidential run, that is what it is with a third party. But yeah, that's interesting. Senator
Smith. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and he idolizes Ron Paul, and that's not a dig. That's a compliment almost. But Ron Paul was famous for doing these speeches from the congressional floor, and we could have that continue on with Dave Smith. Now that's representative, I realize, but yeah, it's interesting.
And it's interesting. I think Dave Smith's position on vaccine mandates actually is I'm tempted to say less libertarian, but I'm not trying. I'm not trying. But Chris Sununu is firmly anti vaccine mandate ban, whereas Dave Smith has become a little more favorable. So, so it is Dave Smith taking the MAGA DeSantis inside track in terms of policy there, which personally I just love to see. So
yeah. Have you said any of these ideas to people just in discussions like at Tom Woods' pre-party and all of that stuff?
Yeah, I talked about the John Birch Society stuff for a little bit. Okay. It's fun. It's a fun little rabbit hole to talk about. And but yeah, I think in general, anytime I've had someone from the Mises Caucus crowd reach out, I try to be as honest as possible, and I try to provide something valuable. Because again, I think the objective is a good one. I just think, I'm just trying to make as many points as I can against what I think is just bad strategy, and trying to provide. But I'm trying to provide useful feedback without just shitting on the idea. Because I'm not. Again, I have a tremendous amount of respect, great appreciation for just how difficult it is to create something like this, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for what Michael Heiss has been able to accomplish. Like that is no small undertaking, and it's more than just simply surrounding yourself with some big wigs and saying good ideas. Like it takes a hell of a lot of hard work. But I think that there are ways of I think there's ways of taking the general idea and applying it in a way that could even have such a go even greater, and I think that would be the best interest of everyone.
I have to ask you about a topic that's not totally related to this, but before I do that, is there anything else you want to hit on this specific issue?
Oh, no, I think I've run my yap enough on that one.
So I think you posted this tweet too, a quote from Rothbard.
Oh, yeah.
But our friend Stratty certainly posted it. And the tweet was, everything good in Western civilization, this is the quote from Rothbard, everything good in Western civilization, from individual liberty to the arts, is due to Christianity. Now, those of us that know of Murray well obviously think that's interesting because he himself was an atheist. However, he did recognize cultural aspects of life, which is, which we talk about with the Rothbard-Rockwell report a lot. And then, so Stratty posted it, and David Gordon is saying that indeed was not a Murray Rothbard quote. Now, who wants to argue with David Gordon? Well, Stratty does. But have you researched that particular quote? Stratty seems like he has, and Lou Rockwell, I believe, put it in a Rothbard-Rockwell report. Do you know the history of this quote? The why? Okay, go ahead.
I know. I believe that's where I first saw it was Lou Rockwell quoting a copy of the Rothbard-Rockwell report, actually I think that one was on Liberty. I think actually. But I know that Murray Rothbard saw that article before it was published, and so Murray Rothbard, I think that was a Murray Rothbard quote. What was it? Something said at a, I think that I'm not quite. It might have been something in a spoken conversation or spoken speech that was never published. Something those doors, whatever. But I felt pretty good about that one, just because again. This was something that Lou wrote when Murray was alive, so it went by Murray before it was published. So
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
but yeah, it is interesting because I think you also see like one of Rothbard's last great accomplishments was his history of economic thought, and within that it very much is, I think, along the lines of kind of. It highlights the role of the church in the promotion of scientific advancement, and I think that Stratty also showed other Rothbard quotes that pithy, but also kind of alluded to that same sort of message in there. So I think I see some of that, even though again Rothbard himself was an atheist, agnostic, whatever. He was definitely in the 90s had a strong appreciation for the cultural importance of the church and its unique role that it played within Western civilization. And of course, Ralph Raico, in his work on Europe, also makes some similar points as well. So I don't think, whether or not it's in another Rothbard book, I'm not certain, but I feel good about the quote.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll get out of here shortly. What's going on? It looks to me like you guys are doing, you might have already recorded it, another Redneck Riviera podcast.
Yeah. So
when is that?
I think tomorrow. It's come out tomorrow.
Good.
We had a lot of people asking about it during all the events. So hopefully I can make that a weekly thing. I think we've got a work schedule worked out with Ford to help make that consistent. No, it's already up. So
already up.
There you go. So I'll be tweeting that shortly.
Good.
So, yeah.
Let me ask you this too. The events that you went to now, there's been 3 of them within a month. I always hear from people, it might be different for you because you go to these events a lot, but you hear from people, this was refreshing. I feel like, it was, I was cleansed of the outside world, the crap that you go through and hear from normies. What did you think broadly of the 3 events that you attended? In that manner, maybe if you this is amazing gathering, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, they were all very different in their own ways. I loved being in Texas. Obviously it was great meeting, hanging out with Matt in person, and that sort of, it was, that was great because it was kind of, dealing with in real life kind of, people have made it the hardcore of my Twitter circle of late, and so that aspect was fun. And a lot of the speakers that you guys were able to pull together, some of the interesting crossovers and things like that was great, and the stand-up comedy was particularly great.
Yeah. Yes.
Both Robbie and was it Kyle Ruff?
Kyle Ruff, yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome. So that was always great to see. The Tom Woods event was just incredible, just the numbers. like, I mean, and I mean, it's one of those most diverse groups. Um, uh, you'll see in a libertarian event, because you still have, because Tom's career, you've got the constitutional, the Tea Party group stuff. You've got, sorry, I got my dog out of here. You have all the libertarian Mises Caucus group. You've got, there's so many different, I mean, just get 2,500 people is just crazy. Just the amount of energy and the amount of young people that are coming up, recognizing me from Twitter was interesting. And the Mises event was just, classy, beautiful. I mean, it was great. So all three were great. But one of the things is just how much the sort of conversations that we've been having were being talked about.
Okay.
Like, when people came up asking me, it was, they wanted to talk about, either try to push back against what they see as unlibertarian ideas, or express that why they were excited about some of the different holes that we've been going down. And it's great to get both. But particularly Tom's event was just, I mean, it was just nonstop, because again, that's just what happens. We have 2,500 people at something, but it was just, it was different. I've been a Mises U before, and people that have read some of my writings and that sort of stuff. But Tom Wood's thing was just a whole different level. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, it's was the term when they spoke to you about the quote
Post-libertarian.
Yes. Yeah. Was that thrown about a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. And things, none of them were being like snarky about it. It was kind of just, they just thought that was the easiest label to get. It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah. Who do you think people are talking about when they say that?
I think they're talking about Pete. I think they're talking about us. I think they're talking about Matt, and everything that Popular Liberty is doing. And
okay.
I think that more. I don't think. It's like Nick Land used that expression at one point.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything deep like that. I think this all just comes from those few podcasts and things like that, which is fine. It's easy to find something that kind of quick hand. So I'm not offended by it at all.
Yeah, same. And now our friend Mark Claire's been outed on Pete's show and Dave's show. He's going to be labeled with that PL label. I know he is. In fact, I hang out with him in a few days here. He's near. Great. Yeah, I say in town. He's in Round Rock, which is about an hour from me, but we're going to somehow meet halfway and figure this out. Yeah, it's going to be cool.
I wish I could make it down to Mexico for the event that you're going down.
Dude, that's going to be fun. Yeah, that's. I have a weakness for tequila and Mexican style margaritas. I mean, the actual real kind, not the kind from shitty restaurants. But yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. Post-libertarianism is when you post up at the club. Well, then you could probably count me out of that one. Then I don't know that I ever do that. Anything you have to plug away at for people watching this?
Find Mises.org, still producing good stuff. I'll be retweeting the new Redneck Riviera episode. Yeah. And also, if anyone out there is interested, there are some libertarian scholars trying to get the money to publish a Anatomy of the State translation out, in a book form over there. And so I'm trying to get a better link from them to help make it easier for international donors. I've been working with them for a very long time. My buddy Brett helped them publish The Essential von Mises, which is a book of Mises articles edited by Murray Rothbard. And it's just a bunch of very earnest, well-intentioned Korean scholars trying to spread the ideas over there in their own language. And everyone there is great, some strong Hoppians, and going to try to help them out as much as I can. And so I'll have a new link about that pretty soon.
Are you going to the Ron Paul event in Lake Jackson?
I believe so. That is the plan.
Yeah. Good. Okay. I'm going to be at that too.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah. Tho Bishop, thanks for being here on Counterflow Live. And like we said at the beginning, this was no knocks at anyone's opinions within the LPMC. It was just some friendly discussion on things Tho would do if he were in charge, or I would approve of or do if I had to say so. It's not a diss on anyone in the LPMC.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Well,
Thanks,
thank you for having me,
guys.
Buck.
Thanks, guys. Yes, sir. Now I got to figure out how to get the hell out.